Yo, what is up? What is up? YouTube boxing family. It is IK right here. Um, I wanted to come out and talk about, um, man, I don't even know, man. I mean, I got plenty of good
What's the
ideas.
problem?
I got plenty of good ideas that I can come out with for, good topics at hand. But I guess we're probably gonna talk about maybe Spence and Crawford. Um, I mean, I don't know. I think it's probably time to really talk about that, where Floyd Mayweather is now blaming, um, you know, yeah, like basically, like I don't know. Let's, oh man, I really don't know where to go in terms of Spence and Crawford, because now it seems like that the fight is not fully agreed upon. And I guess as far as where things are now being confirmed, it's just that, this is now turning into a truth or dare type of war where people are starting to like make up weird ass, like assumptions to say that that the fight is going to happen or the fight isn't going to happen. But I'm of the believe that Spence and Crawford will happen, and that's mainly because that credit to Ricky Williams. He was not the one that confirmed it, and everything is basically agreed upon. But now we just have to hear a possible announcement for for the fight. See, now don't take my word for it, because I'm only going off of like what the insider sources will be saying. And I mean, that's perfectly fine, because it's like, regardless if Crawford's not going to fight Spence, then Spence, he is coming back November 19th. So that will be his fight date for him coming back. The problem that I have is just that, why are people not wanting this fight to happen? Why are people making up weird excuses to say that, well, this isn't going to happen because Bud isn't getting his fair share of money, blah blah blah. No, see personally with me, I don't give two craps about Bud fans. You guys know me. I really do not like Terrence Crawford anymore. I used to like him, but it's like at this point of his career and as a fighter, it's like Terrence Crawford, all he has is basically Errol Spence, and that's it. If you don't fight Errol Spence, then you already know what's going to happen with your career. Your career is basically just gonna go down the drain, and everyone's going to be laughing at you to basically say that you're a garbage human being, and you're a pussy. At the end of the shit, at the end of the day. So with Errol Spence coming into this equation, why is this fight so much more on on a term to say that Errol Spence doesn't have any leverage coming back on November 19th, when clearly Terrence Crawford, he does not have a promotional backing. So regardless of what anybody wants to say, Bud Crawford is on the wrong side of 35. um you know he's either 34, about to be 35 years old. So I don't know why Terrence Crawford will try to try to think that he has more time left in the sport of boxing, because it's like, at this point of your career, your body's deteriorating, and whoever knows what you're gonna be looking like coming back in your next fight. If I'm Terrence Crawford, I would go after the best competition, because wasting the rest of your years fighting some low level opposition for the least amount of money, that's not going to help you, that's not going to help your children, and that sure as hell ain't going to help your family. Because Terrence Crawford, he's not really in his prime anymore. I don't see Terrence Crawford being very successful in a fight against Errol Spence, and I could very well see Crawford brutally not coming back to his regular self after Errol Spence kills him in the ring. I don't really have too much to really say about Crawford, because I don't really think Crawford is ever going to return back to the ring. unless it is a fight with Errol Spence or probably a big money fight with a higher known tier name, like, welterweight fighter like a Keith Thurman. But that's to me, that's just pretty much how I see Crawford. He's basically, on life support with his career, and he doesn't have really that many options. So, if I'm Crawford, I need to go after Errol Spence, because Errol Spence is the only like opponent out there on the list where everybody needs to see this fight. And when I say everybody, like, this does not include Bud Dick Riders, because like we already know that Bud Dick Riders, they don't want to see this fight. They don't want to see Terrence Crawford get his ass kicked, and knowing that the odds are more heavily stacked against Crawford than it is on EJ, because EJ, he has plenty of other fights left, left in him to go for those big money fights. So it's like Errol Spence, he's already set. He has his PBC model fight schedule set in front of him to say, hey, look, if we can't get Crawford wins, then guess what? 154, we're definitely going to become undisputed, because Errol Spence, he doesn't want to lose. But guess what? If he does lose, he has plenty of other big fights heading in front of him. But it's like, for Crawford fans, they don't want Crawford to lose. They want Crawford to be like this ultimate, like, lesser version of Floyd Mayweather type of fighter, to basically be like, oh yeah, man, Bud is pound for pound number one, man. Nobody can't beat Bud, man. Man, look at them damn feet, man. Yeah, man. Like, his feet is so flashy and so classy and acty. Like, dude, like, it's just absolutely insanity, man. Because Crawford fans actually remind me of Manny Pacquiao fans, but they're just mentally retarded with lesser IQ. And I'm pretty sure they're pretty much like about that same, mindset in their IQ. But it's like, you can easily tell like Crawford fans have like no knowledge in boxing, and 9 times out of 10, these are just people that just don't like Errol Spence at the end of the day. Very similar to Tyson Fury fans, but the only difference is that Crawford fans, if they really do talk boxing, they're really not being, honest, in boxing. So, what the problem is just that when this fight does get made, or if it does get made, which I'm really hoping that we do get an announcement, I say probably by next week, or the latest, maybe by the start of maybe October, that would make the most sense right now, because Errol Spence, he says, look, bro, I'm not fucking waiting up on you. And guess what? If Crawford, honestly, Crawford, if he really is serious about having this fight made, he would have already been shown proof to say, hey, look, the contract is signed, blah, 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 fight's made, all right, see you guys on, on November 19th. But with Errol Spence, he's not saying anything like that. He's just basically just yawning, laughing, just basically joking around with like what all these weird ass people from ESPN, like Mike Cappinger and all these dumbass fucking mainstream sources that most likely watch me or anybody else that's probably heavily connected to, either to either camps through, through the YouTube boxing stable community. But it's like, when you really think about it, who would you listen to on a daily basis when it comes to boxing? Are you going to tune into ESPN to listen to boxing? No, you're going to go to fucking YouTube, because YouTube has at least some of the most accurate information with some YouTubers that are heavily connected in boxing. But the problem is that you have idiots in the sport of boxing that make YouTube content that like to lie, to basically say this is how things are supposed to be, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's really not supposed to be like that. But I mean, the biggest problem is just that a lot of YouTubers that are very heavily ignorant, in the sport, they're obviously dick riding, their fighter. And, I'm not going to say any names, but, if you guys know who I'm really talking about, you can understand that these YouTubers that are making money off of YouTube just talking out of like their asses to basically say that, you know, this fighter beats that fighter, blah blah blah. They're obviously doing it for the sake of promoting their channel because they have nothing else better to say. That's why when you see all these like mainstream YouTube channels that are getting hundreds and thousands of views basically crapping on a fighter like Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, they're doing it for clickbait. They're not doing that like they're not doing it to actually be logically consistent. I mean, maybe to some, because you know you have some of those weird ass channels that actually dick ride Terrence Crawford, but still, it's like you obviously can tell that these people don't get any views other than tying Errol Spence's name around Terrence Crawford. That's really how Terrence Crawford gets his, you know, publicity stunt over the internet for how he is known as a fighter, because of his name being tied to Errol Spence. Otherwise, him and Spence wouldn't have been such a big fight as it is now, because Errol Spence, he just wants to be undisputed, but Crawford, with him being undisputed at 140, it only makes sense for people to say, yeah, Crawford can beat Spence, man. You know, Errol Spence is like afraid of Crawford, blah blah blah. No, motherfucker. It's more like Crawford, he's afraid of Spence, because Crawford's been talking all this junk to say like, yeah, you know, I've been one of Spence, blah blah blah, you know, yeah, man, like, where you at, EJ? You know, I'm gonna beat you up, EJ. But it's like, you can obviously tell, like, the energy from Crawford, he could have easily had, you know, his fight made with Spence a long, long, long time ago. So, you know, predating to when Errol Spence won the WBC title away from Sean Porter, Errol Spence said in an interview with Marcos Villegas back in the past, where he said that the WBC mandated a fight between him and Crawford in the past, and Crawford, he turned it down prior to that date. But to that time frame, that was probably when he won the IBF title against Kell Brook back in 2017. And then, for those of you that don't know, when Crawford did, you know, win his welterweight title against Jeff Horn back in 2018, he could have very well easily fought Errol Spence for that title unification through the WBC. So Crawford, if he really wanted to get Spence out of the picture, he could have very well defeated Errol Spence for that, you know, particular reasoning to be a unified champion. And then he could have fought Ugas, and then he could have fought Manny Pacquiao, and then he could have fought all the other big name, like, you know, fighters. Like, I mean, it's not like Terrence Crawford could have gotten these big fights. And, you know, for any idiot trying to say, oh, nah, man, you know, Crawford wouldn't have gotten these fights because, you know, he was tied with Bob Arum. Well, dipshit, if you understand that Bob Arum, he literally said, coming out of his own mouth, that Crawford can't sell worth a damn, that he could buy a house off of Beverly Hills, right? Like I remember when, like, you know, when he said that in some TV interview. But still, the reason why Crawford he was not able to get these big fights was because Crawford never wanted these fights to begin with. If he wanted to fight Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao, all these big name fighters, he could have gone after them. But the thing is that he used Bob Arum as an excuse to say why these fights were not being made. But still, when you think about it, Crawford and his team were pathologically lying to say that these fights were, you know, fights that they wanted, but still they did not actually actively wanted these fights. Because if they really wanted these fights, they could have easily said to Bob Arum, hey, look, how about we go over to the PBC or wherever, right? And we could very well make those fights happen with them for all the PBC level fighters that we want, right? I.e. being Keith Thurman, Adrian Broner, Jermell Charlo, who else? Jaron Ennis, probably. to which, like, I mean, Jaron Ennis wouldn't be on Terrence Crawford's radar, theoretically speaking. But if Crawford wanted to fight Boots earlier in his career, when he was, when he was in the come up, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. But the thing is that Crawford could have easily wiped out 147 a lot sooner than just holding that stupid WBO title, which to me, I don't consider the WBO to be a actual title to begin with, because to be honest, the WBO should not even be considered a mandatory title to have for Undisputed, because when you really think about it, the WBO was really never meant to be looked at as a lineal title to become a 4-belt era champion. But if we really want to go back to the 3-belt era, when boxing actually had decent fights or some of the best matchups ever, to which, I mean, I'm never for sanctioned bodies, but still, if you were to ask me, like, which era was better, I would just say, let the 1-belt era with the WBC, but still, I would even probably go back way further, back in the old days where Jack Johnson, and them would actually have to fight high level opposition to actually get their spot. But still, back in those days were very corrupt, so I would never really argue for that. But the thing is that when you really look at these sanctioned bodies, if they were taken out of the picture and they were replaced with marketized, belt, agencies that were, backed up with network promotions, right? I'll just say PBC or Top Rank or any of these big networks, similar to the UFC, but have it in a sense of which fighters are being promoted the way that they should be promoted. But the thing is that when you have a champion, you have a one face, one name, and one, body of a fighter to represent that, actual division as a fighter. So, like to me at least, if I'm paying my money to go see a fighter that I like, I want to see all the best fighters, go at it. But the thing is that, if I can't see all the best fighters to go at it, and they're just basically picking and choosing certain fights that they want to basically duck and dodge, then no, fuck that. Because I don't want to be paying my money into a fighter that's not going to give me the product that I, the consumer, pay for. So, for Crawford's case, it's like he's been strategically moving very, very careful against Errol Spence, because he knows that Errol Spence could have easily taken him out prior to when he won his WBO title against Jeff Horn. But still, it's like if Crawford really wanted to fight Spence, Crawford would not be making up this weird excuse to say these weird excuses saying Al Heyman can't make fights with the other side of the street bullshit, and PBC is the reason why Top Rank fighters can't get fights with them. To which that's obviously bullshit, because Top Rank has made multiple fights in the past with PBC, like Crawford and Felix Diaz, and then obviously Crawford and Sean Porter. And with Sean Porter, he was still signed with PBC, but pretty much what the thing was just that Al Heyman was able to work with Sean Porter to say, okay, look, we're going to give you this opportunity to fight Crawford in his backyard on Top Rank. So either way, it's a win-win, because PBC, they obviously didn't need to do any promotion for the fight, but I'm pretty sure when it came to the purse splits, either Top Rank had to pay all that money out to Sean Porter, because Sean Porter, he was only going to be offered 1.5 million. That was prior to the very first initial offer, and then Porter said, nah, fuck that, because I don't want that type of money, and I don't deserve that type of money. And then that's where the fight itself went to purse bid, but then Top Rank actually manned up and then gave Sean Porter the money that he was actually wanting. So it actually made a lot more sense for Porter to actually stand up for himself. But then Crawford, he was basically just sitting in the background, not wanting to help out Porter, and Sean Porter was basically telling everybody in the media and all this other crazy ass shit that Crawford and his team wasn't really working well with Sean Porter and his dad to actually give him the money that he was actually wanting. So I mean, either way, this is Crawford's fault, because this is what Crawford does to every one of his opponents. He always comes in as the A side in most of his fights. So, but the biggest issue is just that Crawford, he's not a good business person. He's very similar to a guy like, Gary Russell. But the issue is that with Gary Russell is not taking risk like any other fighter would to go after any big name fighter. In which, granted, people can say, nah, man, that's a lie, because he went after, Gervonta Davis, and then Gervonta Davis didn't want no parts of Gary. Well, you can say that, but at the same token, did he really go after Tank? Did he really show up to Tank's fights? Did he really press on Gervonta Davis to go for those fights? So, fast forward to a situation like Crawford and Spence, that's what Crawford is doing. Every single one of these fights that you've seen Crawford in, these are fights that Crawford politically set up for the sake of him making sure that the business was never right to begin with, but he wanted to make sure that he maxed out as much money as he can for the least amount of risk. So for Crawford, he's actually in a really bad state, in which he put himself in a very bad position to the sake of him being, how should I say, he does not want to take full responsibility for fucking up the business, to which the business of boxing is what makes these fights really unmakeable. But when you think about the amount of time and effort it takes to make these fights, you'll understand that Terence Crawford, he's a horrible businessman when it comes to making fights, because Bomac has been feeding him the wrong information all this time of how to put fights together, and he's basically been taking advantage of Crawford's career, to which Crawford, he doesn't really listen to what goes on what goes on behind closed doors. But when you think about the amount of struggle that Crawford's team makes towards him, Crawford just automatically listens, and he doesn't really do anything good to actually make business dealings better. So for Spence and Crawford, if there is a holdup, it's not Errol Spence that's holding up this fight. It's Terence Bud Crawford that is holding up this fight. But if this fight is made, then come September, or come November 19th, this fight will be one of the best fights to watch. And I would really hope that this fight is made by November 19th. And I'm pretty sure that if the sources that that I'm connected with are true, then I think this fight will be announced very soon. The only issue is just that, at what point will we get the announcement for this fight? Because when Errol Spence, when he comes out with his point of view to say that this fight is made, then I will fully believe, the actual claims to be true, because I don't ever think Errol Spence would be a liar. I think Errol Spence would very well be very excited that this fight is made. But Terence Crawford, he knows that the reason why he had to make this fight is because that his career is basically on life support. He doesn't have any, he literally has anywhere else to go other than fight Errol Spence, because he cannot go up to 154 and just challenge Jermell Charlo. It's not going to work like that. He has to wait his turn to go through the WBO to go after Jermell Charlo, and then honestly, Crawford's either going to get killed by Errol Spence if he were to fight him, or he would, or Crawford will get absolutely annihilated and beat up so bad to the point where he cannot operate himself as a human being anymore by Jermell Charlo in a much worser fashion. And I'm only saying that because Jermell Charlo, he's not the type of person to have a big payday with. But if you think about it, Crawford has more pressure on him when he goes up in weight to fight Jermell Charlo versus him fighting Errol Spence is a much bigger money fight, but that's a much deadlier risk for the sake of him getting the most bread. But on top of that, there's a lot more pressure coming into a fight with Spence versus with Charlo. It's still pressure, but you're taking a lot of, you're taking a lot more punishment at the risk of you potentially losing more health to your life of fighting a guy like Jermell Charlo. So either way, Jermell Charlo, that's a way higher tier risk, for the least amount of money. But with Spence, that's a great risk for the most amount of money, but that's a very deadly, offering for something that you don't know if you're going to come out of that fight, in one piece. So I can very well see that fight happening to be a very big, absolute failure, because I think if Crawford really wanted to go after a guy like Jermell Charlo, I think Jermell Charlo should have been that fight much earlier in his career, and that fight would have actually made a lot more sense for Crawford to just challenge Jermell Charlo and then make that fight happen. But either way, how I see this whole fiasco dilemma, I think what's going to end up happening is this: that if we do have the fight, then we should get an announcement hopefully by the end of hopefully by the end of next week or by the end of the month, because we're basically 2 months away from November 19th. So we have about 63 days left, and we don't know when the announcement will ever come out. And I'm not saying that this fight is never to be, how should I say, final, because we don't know if the fight is completely final. But if the fight is 100%, if the fight is 100% finalized and sealed and delivered, there's nothing to really worry about this fight not being fully made, because Crawford, he's literally holding up this fight. He's going to keep on lying. He's going to keep on saying that Errol Spence doesn't want this fight, when clearly Errol Spence wants this fight. It's just that Crawford, he doesn't want to man up and actually take ownership for his career to say that this fight isn't being made because of him. So either way, if the fight is made, Crawford needs to be coming out of his own way to say that this fight is not being made because I want more demands for this fight, when clearly that's not true, because you're getting everything that you could potentially get. But guess what? You're not going to get the biggest split. And if EJ is going to 70-30 you or 65-35, by all means, you better take that damn good offer, because 65-35 is way better than getting a 80-20 per split. Because I'm sorry to all you, literally, to all you Bud dick riders, you literally effed up Bud's career by thinking that he can just get a big purse split because he was undisputed at 140. That does not work when it comes to the business table. It's what you do as a fighter to sell in your career. So either way, Terrence Crawford, he's literally on life support with his career, and he either needs to basically suck it up and just get this fight made with Spence, or get out of the way and leave Spence alone, and then probably get beat up by Virgil Ortiz or Jerome Boots Ennis. I don't know, but I would just rather see that happen, because at this point, man, I'm just not looking forward to another bullshit Crawford fight, and I would rather see Errol Spence beat up Crawford so Crawford he can get out of boxing. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Sorry for the vulgarity. Obviously, like I always said, it for not made for children. So I'll see you guys very, very soon. Let me know what you guys think about this whole Crawford Spence dilemma fiasco, and I'll see you guys later. All right, thank you very much, and peace out. Bye.